2 days before the election, the government of Uganda shut down the internet completely. Yes, you heard me correctly. In the year 2025, a government shut down the entire internet of a country. They are saying this was done to prevent misinformation, to prevent disinformation, to stop electoral fraud, to avoid incitement to violence. But my brothers and sisters, when you shut down the internet during an election, what are you really trying to hide? The people of Uganda have been in darkness for these past days. They cannot communicate with each other. They cannot share what they are seeing at the polling stations. The media cannot do their work properly. Journalists are having to call their reporters on the phone because they cannot get any live video. How can you have a transparent election when you have cut off the main means of communication in the modern world? This internet shutdown has been criticized by human rights groups all over the world. They are calling it an authoritarian tactic, a repressive measure. And they are right. Because when you do not want people to see what you are doing, when you do not want the world to witness your actions, you cut off their ability to communicate. This is exactly what the government of Uganda has done. Now let me tell you about what happened during the voting itself. The turnout was actually quite low. Many people did not come out to vote. And this is important to understand. When people lose faith in the electoral process, when they believe that their vote does not matter because the outcome has already been decided, they stay home. This is what we saw in Uganda. The participation was small because the people have seen this story before. They have seen elections where no matter what they do, no matter how they vote, the same person remains in power. But even with this low turnout, even with fewer people voting than expected, Museveni is saying he expects to get 88% of the votes that were cast. He is saying that if the votes are counted properly and not stolen, he will achieve this percentage. My brothers and sisters, does this make sense to you? When turnout is low, when people are staying away from the polls, how does the incumbent suddenly get an even higher percentage than before? Let me tell you what BobiWine and his supporters witnessed on the ground. They saw people being given money by those in NRM vehicles. The ruling party was literally buying votes in front of polling stations. They saw their polling agents being chased away from different voting centers. How can you have fair observation of an election when the observers from the opposition are being driven away by force? BobiWine himself went to Kisenyi to see what was happening there. What he found was violence and intimidation. People who were known to support the opposition were being beaten in the streets. The ruling party operatives were seated in their cars, distributing money, and then moving around to attack anyone they identified as opposing Museveni. This is not democracy, my brothers and sisters. This is dictatorship wearing the mask of democracy. BobiWine has been calling on Ugandans to cast a protest vote against this authoritarian government. He sees Museveni as a dictator who treats Uganda as his personal property and all Ugandans as his slaves. And when you look at the way this election has been conducted, can you say he is wrong? When a leader shuts down the internet, when he allows his supporters to beat opposition voters, when he chases away election observers, when he predicts his own victory percentage before the votes are even counted, is this not the behavior of someone who believes he owns the country? The campaign itself was violent from beginning to end. Just 1 month ago, BobiWine was campaigning in the capital, Kampala. On that same day, he was beaten up. His supporters were attacked with tear gas. This has been the pattern throughout the entire campaign period. Violence, intimidation, repression. And now, as the votes are being counted, we are supposed to believe that in this atmosphere of fear and violence, the people freely chose to give Museveni 88% of their votes. Let me tell you about the irregularities that were reported even before the voting began. The voter register itself was questioned by the opposition. They found double entries, multiple entries, inconsistencies throughout the register. How can you have a fair election when the list of voters itself is compromised? But these concerns were ignored. The election went ahead with a flawed register. And then on the day of voting itself, the rules were changed. People came to polling stations early in the morning, knowing that they would have their fingers scanned or their eyes scanned for biometric verification. This was the procedure that had been announced. But then at 10 a.m., suddenly the rules changed. Now everyone in the register was being allowed to vote, even without the biometric verification. Why this sudden change? My brothers and sisters, when you change the rules in the middle of the process, it is because you are trying to manipulate the outcome. BobiWine raised an important question that I want you to think about. He asked, in a situation where there is no internet, where the media is heavily censored, how do you communicate with your supporters across the country? How do you tell people to go and vote manually when there is no way to communicate that message nationwide? Imagine if the opposition wanted to announce something to the nation, to call for a specific action. How would they do it in this kind of blackout? This is a serious problem for democracy. When you cannot communicate with the people, when you cannot coordinate your observers, when you cannot share information about what is happening at different polling stations, how can you protect the integrity of the vote? Now, as the votes are being counted, we are seeing Museveni take the lead. The numbers are coming out showing him winning by large margins. But my brothers and sisters, these are not real numbers. This is fabrication. This is what happens when you control the entire electoral process, when you shut down communication, when you chase away observers, when you change the rules during voting, when you intimidate voters with violence. You can produce whatever numbers you want.